again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone, ready to talk the final episode of Stargirl Season 1 with my wonderful co-host and someone who's eagerly anticipating Stargirl Season 2, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
Shade. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait for it.
Focus, Jesse. Yes. This was so much fun, and you and I actually sneaked a discussion at the end of our blatant plug here, Doctor Who episode, because I was so excited about it.
Next up everywhere. Yes.
Yeah, they stuck the landing, as far as I'm concerned. I think they delivered a powerful season 1, gave us some good answers, wrapped up some nice things, and left things the way you should.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that Josh Whedon used to always do with Buffy and Angel is he would always never assume he's getting another season. So he would wrap things up with the season, but then leave a few little things dangling out there that they could pick up for the next season. And that's what they did, and I loved it.
Yeah. So Jesse's obviously very eager to talk about what we're going to talk about because he's just jumping right into his initial thoughts. So here at episode 189, we are going to talk Stars and Stripe, Part 2, the second part, of course, of the two-part Stargirl Season 1 finale. Aired on August 10th, 2020, written by Jeff Johns, co-creator of Courtney Whitmore, and who wrote the previous Stargirl episodes Pilot, Stripe, and Shining Knight, and directed by Greg Beeman, who also directed the Season 1 episode Stripe.
Good.
So they brought him back for the finale. And obviously, you know, Jesse's very eager to talk about this, so I'm sure you got some more initial thoughts, so go for it.
Yeah, you wonder if because they had the same director, did he kind of do this, did he storyboard this all as one long episode maybe? It was good. I just was very happy with it. We got a nice fake out moment that I know made your heart leap and then sink.
Yes. But I have to give credit to it that it was well done. So
it was very well done.
Yeah.
And for all my concerns about Mike and my worry about him, he may have had the line of the episode.
So I'm guessing you're going to save that for our favorite quotes.
Yes, I am. He really had, they paid off and gave him some nice moments. And so this was good. This was very good.
Okay. So obviously
How about you? Did you like it?
Obviously I really liked it. I'm not going to give my rating right away, but,
No.
But yes, I definitely enjoyed it. I thought that, this was a solid finale for Stargirl Season 1. A lot of things been building up to this. We knew it was basically heading toward the New Justice Society versus the Injustice Society. And we weren't disappointed at all. We get some significant character deaths in this one, some character-changing moments, and some great setups for Season 2, which obviously we're going to have to devote a separate topic for because there's just so much greatness to talk about there.
Absolutely.
All right. So we have a lot to unpack. So trivia, I just thought I'd mention. I got a couple of things this time. First and foremost, this episode was dedicated to Courtney Elizabeth Johns, of course, sister of Jeff Johns, who Jeff based his character, Courtney Whitmore, the once second Star Spangled Kid and future Stargirl on. And there's a nice little nod when the TV Courtney is pinning her Christmas family photo on her photo collage wall in her bedroom. The real Courtney's picture is shown at the lower right side of the screen.
Oh, nice. That's very nice.
Little Easter egg there. And also, for those who caught it during the episode, there's a nice little Easter egg. Yolanda Montez, a.k.a. Wildcat, she makes the mistake of calling Justin the Silent Knight instead of the Shining Knight.
Yes, I did like that.
And if you're a hardcore DC fan, you probably picked up on that because The Silent Knight was created in 1955 by Robert Kanigher and Irv Novick, and first appeared in The Brave and the Bold, Volume 1, Issue Number 1, as Brian Kent, who was later revealed to be one of Hawkman's reincarnations from the 6th century Great Britain, and he also became one of the Knights of the Round Table. And essentially, he was just a very traditional knight that got his nickname because he was asked about who he was, and he kept his identity silent when confronted by bad guys. So the nickname kind of stuck. And but essentially, he's just a very traditional medieval knight character that has had, because of his historical significance, has had some encounters with various DC Comics characters like Superman or others through a little timey-wimey time travel. So just thought it was a fun little Easter egg for DC fans.
And I tell you what, I think that the writer's room, and maybe Jeff and James, but the rest of them, they have a burning desire to do a movies set for 60s and 70s comics. Like at this time, they had, once again, The Haunted Tank, G.I. Robot, Prez, Unknown Soldier, and I love those little Easter eggs on the movie theater. That was so nice.
Yeah.
And
we talked about those before, yeah.
Yes. But they showed them again, and I was happy to see them again.
Yeah. And I have to, James Robinson in particular is a very big aficionado of old school DC and obscure characters. So I don't know. I'm guessing maybe he was the one who suggested this to Jeff to put in the script, or maybe Jeff thought of the gag on his own, but hard to say because Jeff obviously has understandably a big DC background as well. So as the former chief creative officer for DC Comics. All right. So we have 4 topics, lots to talk about in this one because, hey, it's the finale, right? So topic number 1, let's talk about Stargirl and S.T.R.I.P.E and Barbara and Mike. So we start off the episode, Pat is being mind controlled by Brainwave's telepathy being fueled through the device that the Dragon King invented to amplify his abilities throughout the 6 states or more. And Barbara is also mind controlled because apparently this device works on adults. And the clock is kind of ticking here because a certain percentage, I think they said like 25% roughly, of the people that will be fatally affected by this device because they'll be too busy resisting, and apparently it will kind of short circuit their brains. So a lot's going on. Courtney's having to face off against her father, and the JSA has to face off against Justin later. We'll talk about them, but this particular battle ends up bringing them much closer as a family. So I want to get your thoughts on a lot there. I know there's a lot to talk about, so I'll just let you have at it.
So we are family. I got all my sisters and me.
Jesse breaking up the sister sledge.
There is so much beauty in here. When, first off, they establish, and this makes sense if you're going to do an evil scheme of mind-wiping people, you would want to destroy the more strong-willed.
Yes.
So they set the established like that if you fight them, you try to fight this mind control, it will end up as a side effect burning out your brain. Versus if you're more like, okay, yeah, that's fine, not consciously, but then you would be mind wiped.
Yes.
So I like that little point because you later get when you see Pat is fighting it, and the JSA Next Gen is saying, no, that's not good. Pat can't fight it. You get the first acknowledgement
right.
of it. We got a payoff of 13 after the episodes of, Dad. She
Yes.
calls him Dad, and he calls her daughter toward the end of the episode. So we've talked about that. Pat, like Mike, had seemed to really be bonding with Barbara.
Yeah.
But there was still this kind of, even though we've got Courtney and Pat having all this in common, there's still that kind of back and forth. And I think we started 2 episodes ago when her real father showed up and disappointed her so much, and he was there for her, Pat being there.
Yes.
And we get that payoff here. I just love the idea that, and we, during the fights, there's so much love and support of each other, and then we get a really nice kind of coda of seeing everyone happy at Christmas.
Right.
And we see that they
come together,
They have come together as a family.
And that, obviously all that friction that was between Barbara and Pat had fallen by the wayside.
Right.
And everything worked out. We got the nice little Christmassy happy ending.
Yeah.
And you notice they kind of bookended this season with Christmas. We started off with the whole chase scene in the beginning with Starman and S.T.R.I.P.E, and with Santa Claus is Coming to Town playing, and then they bookended it again at the end of the season with Christmas and Jingle Bell Rock by Bobby Helms.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
That was really nice. I had not connected those two till you mentioned it, which is very nice bookends. You hope that next season we're going to see a little bit. Well, I'll save that for another chapter.
Okay.
Anyway,
all right.
I love the interactions between them. Mike gets a chance to be a hero and delivers.
Your line of the episode, apparently.
Yes. Barbara, believes in her daughter now. She believes in Pat.
She's accepting of this. Yes.
Yes. And I don't know if you read this, but Brec mentioned that the scene on the water tower was actually something they wanted for the pilot episode, and they just couldn't work it out, either budget-wise or time-wise, and so they ended up doing it as one of the final scenes, and her point in the interview was she thought it worked even better as that, and I agree. I think that was a really nice father-daughter moment.
Although I was, my wife Lori and I were watching the episode, and Courtney is, she's got a midriff and she's in shorts, and it's snowing out. Now, does the cosmic staff keep her warm, or did that just not make sense? You think she would have had some extra leggings on or something? But it was a little bit more protection. Sitting there especially sitting on a metal water tower.
Yes.
In the wintertime.
Yes, I thought of that. I also thought of Christmas afternoon. I guess everyone's gone to their room to play with their toys or to take a Christmas nap, resting up for the Doctor Who special that's going to happen. That everyone's going to sit around watching. But it did seem like, we're just going to abandon the family so I can go, joyriding on my staff, and then, and I guess you could see Barbara telling Pat, okay, Courtney, go get Courtney and bring her home.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, and he gets in the thing. It was a sweet moment, but I do think you're like, shouldn't you be cold?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Like, you should have
a jacket at least.
But. Remember the old 60s Batman would have all the different kind of bat outfits depending on the weather. So it seems like she should have a winter Stargirl outfit. I agree.
All right. I thought that, there's a lot of great going on here with the family. You brought up a lot of great things, especially with, the scene where, the sequence where Courtney as Stargirl was having to fight Pat in the stripe armor. And there's at one point where she tries to bring him out of his mind control. You know, she talks about how much she cares for him and talks about how, you know, her feelings for him and how she's accepted him as her father. And probably not expecting Pat to hear this, but hopefully hearing enough to bring him out. And then once the mind control is disabled, Pat tells her that he hurt her. So, and I thought it was a very sweet moment.
I thought it was a very sweet moment. Really well done. You know, in a series that is, this is as close to Generations as we have, you know, this show is about the generations, and that is, and I think to show that support and that sense of family,
right,
it is great. So yeah, I was very, very pleased.
Yeah, and then obviously you have that big sequence on the clock tower in downtown Blue Valley, where you know, Jordan the Icicle is threatening Barbara, and in probably one of the series' best moments so far, Pat goes up there. His stripe armor has been completely trashed by Solomon Grundy earlier in the episode, but he goes up there as himself, and Icicle is kind of laughing about it, going, "Well, look, you know, what are you going to do? You don't have any stripe armor, you don't have anything," and Pat is essentially saying, "Yes, I do. We have our daughter." And it's kind of like a big fist pump kind of moment
Yes.
where Courtney comes up and decks Icicle, and you know, Pat rescues Barbara because she, of course, almost plummets to her death. And he does the whole traditional superhero thing where, you know, he reaches down and grabs her and pulls his wife to safety, and they hug and they kiss, and after, of course, Courtney falls and Wildcat rescues her, and then they hug, and everybody's all huggy, lovey-dovey, and then, of course, you have that big, you know, moment where, just at that moment where everybody's kind of huggy, Icicle's starting to threaten in, and then Mike driving a truck. I don't even know I give up how he's actually reaching the pedals, but he comes in and plows into Icicle and shatters him into a jillion pieces.
So I assume
becoming
it's
a murderer in the process, apparently.
You know, this is there. We've got two different villains being killed this scene, and I know we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more. But I mean, but you get what I'm talking about here. There was just, you know, that whole sequence I loved, particularly the moment where Pat, you know, as much as he's, you know, spent so much of the early season trying to protect Courtney and discourage her from being Stargirl, he relied on her in that moment to save his wife.
Yes. And I love that moment when he says our daughter. And I did do a fist pump when the truck came by, and I assume the truck is an automatic.
Yeah.
So Mike didn't have to do the clutch and the brake and the you know, so he just had to, you know,
step on the gas.
Step on the gas.
Yeah.
Great scene with the pup there. It just was it was just the right amount of timing, because you know, everyone was being, you know, kind of relaxing and hugging each other, and then you see him all, you know, turning blue to freeze up, and to have that was just perfect.
Yeah.
Though I agree, a little violent, you know, and then, you know.
Now, what if he hadn't iced up? He would have basically, like, there would have been blood everywhere.
Yes, there would have been. Yes, there would have been.
It would have been horrible, right?
Right. Yes.
So,
but that's what he did to Joey.
Yeah.
Right? So, hey, just
But technically, you know, at least unless Icicle reforms somehow, because being ice.
Yeah.
Technically, Mike's a murderer.
Yes.
Just pointing that out there.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Self-defense, though.
Self-defense. Well, no. Well, he was protecting somebody else.
Yes. Right.
He wasn't in danger. It wasn't self-defense. But he was doing it to protect someone, so.
Yeah, so I think, you know.
If there was any legal ramifications, which of course there won't be, but
right.
because, hey, it's a superhero TV show. They never really go down that road very often.
Garrett Mason would have got him off.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. If he would have still been alive in 2020, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So, anything else about these characters before we move on to our second topic?
I am ready to go on.
Okay, so on a related note, because obviously a lot of this stuff is intertwined. Topic number 2, let's talk about the JSA and the Shining Knight versus the ISA and Shiv. So, a lot of big stuff. We get a lot of great, we finally get to see the big battles between the new Justice Society of America. Justin's in there helping out as best as he can. And the Injustice Society, we get to see them throw down, especially, great fights between Stargirl, Hourman, Wildcat versus the Dragon King and Sportsmaster and Huntress. And then in the process, Shiv gets out and settles a score on her end. So lots to talk about there. So any thoughts about the big throwdown between our two groups?
So I'm going to start with the negative.
Okay.
And this is, I am nitpicking. I admit that if the referee was, nitpicking,
yeah.
I would raise my hand on the court.
5-yard penalty, repeat first down. Yes.
I do not know what Justin storyline added to this season.
Right.
I felt like there wasn't enough payoff. It didn't detract from the season, but I don't think I expected more. And I feel like it's a missed opportunity. If they should have saved that for another season and done more with it.
Well, they may.
Yeah. I agree. I'm just saying, as of now.
Yeah, I think this was essentially an introductory setup. Just introducing the concept like, hey, here's this guy that Pat knew from a previous superhero group. And let's kind of just tease the idea of this superhero group. And at the end of this, Justin says, since you brought it up, Justin says, I'm going to go looking for, 1, I'm going to look for Winged Victory, my horse. And then 2, I'm going to go look for the other soldiers, the 7 soldiers. So essentially I think that's a little bit of a season 2 setup that maybe we will finally get to see the rest of the 7 soldiers of victory in season 2.
Okay.
That's my guess anyway.
And I think that's fair enough.
Like maybe if they didn't get that second season, John could say, well, at least I worked in the Shining Knight a little bit. But since they did get the second season, now they can follow through and bring in the 7 soldiers.
Yeah, and that it ended up being. But for now, I think it was. Yeah. It did not add. It was kind of an unneeded storyline. So moving on.
Yes. Mr.
Great
Nitpicky.
Great fight scenes. Great interactions between them. You just love to hate Cindy. I mean, Shiv is such a great villain.
Scenery chewing villain. Yeah.
Yes, and. She ends up escaping, and
she finally gets out of that cell. What's it been, like 4 episodes, maybe?
Yes.
And she finally gets out of that cell, and interestingly, the first thing she does is go after her father.
Yeah, of course. She's got daddy issues, and she took care of him the easiest way she knew.
She shivved him, literally.
So
essentially earning her name, Shiv, because she shivved him right in the back.
I think it was really good to see the full Solomon Grundy. I think the special effects looked pretty good.
Yeah,
I thought the battle is really nice. We did get Justin helping to fight. So, and that was maybe in my mind. Well, maybe they felt they needed another adult with the JSA Next Generation, and if that's the case, that worked well. I don't think it was needed, but I think. For what he was in there, since he was there, I think it was good to see him helping and fighting. Still a little worried about Beth. Where's her place in this?
No, so we should talk about that. So Beth, she goes through a very big change in this because Icicle finally gets a hold of her Dr. Midnight goggles. And we've talked about in previous episodes how Beth is becoming addicted to Chuck. The fact that she feels Chuck is her best friend. And even Chuck makes a little comment about her being best pal in this right before he's destroyed. So now, with the icicle destroying the Dr. Midnight goggles, Beth is beside herself. I mean, all she can do is just kind of sit there and cry. At this point, she doesn't have any skills, so she's useless in a fight, especially without her Dr. Midnight goggles. So essentially, she's just kind of there. And I was a little disappointed with the way they kind of handled her. That she wasn't more. She contributes, but she obviously they kind of take her off the board halfway through that episode.
I'm right there with you, Charles. I agree that I wanted them to do more, maybe because I like the character so much, and she's such a lovable, dork, and I mean that with great affection, that it was nice to see.
She's the Felicity Smoke of Stargirl. Yes.
And there is that, great scene at the end where Courtney and Rick are trying to make her feel better. Like, we'll restore the goggles. Well, it isn't goggles, it's Chuck. Well, then we'll restore Chuck. I do think that is...
I have no idea how they're going to do that, but
I don't
unless there's a backup copy of Chuck in the JSA computers or something.
Which there seems there should be.
Yeah.
I'm still worried about her. I think the attachment to this artificial intelligence is a little too much.
Yeah.
And we'll see what they do. I don't know how dark they're going to go for the next season, but I like that. I think that
hopefully in the off season, Beth will start working out and learn how to fight.
Yeah, and you should see, like, I'm
a training montage. Yes,
exactly, on my wish list.
Montage, gotta have a montage.
When we're seeing, like, the first parts of, if they're showing us, what happened during the off season, seeing them work out together would be something I'd want to see.
Yeah.
I think Rick had a very nice arc.
And I want to talk about that in our third topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was getting my topics confused. So, yeah.
Remember, I told you I want to single out Our Man and Wildcat. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. Is this when we should mention the where they faded? They gave you false hope and then took it away.
No, we should save that for Wildcat. Talking about Wildcat.
All right.
But the ISA kind of gets dismantled here. Presumably, Sportsmaster and Huntress get arrested. The gambler takes off,
loses all his money.
Yeah, that's kind of Beth's major contribution here. Is that, well, okay, we got to stop the gambler because he's hacking everything. So how do we do that? And Beth comes up with a very clever idea. Well, let's just go after his money. And The gambler's just like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was a great scene.
And all of a sudden you see Beth, talking about how, like, well, hey, I've helped out with charities and, they can certainly use the money. And so you kind of see his bank accounts being dwindled rapidly, going down, and thanks to Chuck's help. So the gambler at one point, just like, okay, this is going sideways. So he deletes everything and gets the heck out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably we might see him again at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe season 2. Who knows?
I'm not sure if this is in one of where we put this, but just as a kind of, we did get Chekhov's tuba paying off.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. Yeah, we might as well talk about that here.
Okay.
Because it does set up it's kind of sort of season 2, I think. But
okay.
But either way, let's just talk about it here. So, we saw at the beginning where the adults are getting brainwashed, mind controlled. And Isaac Bowen, the son of the Fiddler, and presumably going to be the new Fiddler, is, apparently he beat up a bully because he got called a tuba turd. And the principal, or the one of the teachers or whatever catches him and is like, okay, I'm going to take you to the principal. But of course, that moment when everything starts going to hell in a handbasket, and in the football field that they're on, does a whole big James Bond thing and splits open, and you have the big antenna coming out going, and like I said, something right like out of a James Bond or even Austin Powers, and where you have this secret antenna that's been under the football field the whole time, nobody noticing.
Yeah, I liked that scene. I also, there's a very quick where, what would your mother think? My mother told me to do this.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know yet his
mother's dead.
Mother's dead.
Right.
So I do think that is setting up for, the next generation villains, right? This is going to be all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's going to be because that's one of the things that was done in Infinity Incorporated in the comic book series was that you had essentially the next generation, the JSA, Infinity Incorporated, going off against Injustice Unlimited, the next generation of the Injustice Society. So, and I think that's what we're going to see in season 2.
Yeah.
My guess.
And I
so
do...
we'll probably see Cameron, as the new Icicle. We'll see...
Do you think he's going to be evil?
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
Well, they introduced the idea that he has powers. So, but the question is, will he be fully evil?
Yeah, I don't... You know how you believed in Brainwave Jr.?
Yeah.
I believe in him. I believe he's going to end up not being.
Okay. Well, we'll see if you're right on that one. He might redeem himself. Who knows? But there's certainly that possibility.
So this is Icicle's son, right?
Icicle's son, Cameron, yes.
Yeah, so what's Cameron done to redeem himself? What's he done bad yet so far?
Well, he hasn't done anything bad yet.
Okay, just the way you said he redeemed himself, which I was thinking...
No, what my point is that he has powers, and will probably... he'll get to use them in season 2, is my guess. So,
okay.
All right. Along with the other next generation of the Injustice Society. All right. Let's see here. So let's move on. Let's talk about topic number 3. Now, I wanted to single out Our Man and Wildcat because those two characters go through some significant changes as Rick finally gets his chance to throw down with Solomon Grundy, and Wildcat has her encounter with Brainwave, who's ultimately first, there's that illusion that it's Henry, who turns out to be the original Brainwave. And Wildcat makes this very, prophetic comment early on when trying to calm Rick down, going, look, we shouldn't kill. And Rick, who had approached this with the intent on killing, and this is one of the reasons I want to talk about this, he chooses not to kill, while Yolanda, who was trying to preach to Rick about not killing, ends up killing herself. So there are two big character shifts here, and big turning points, I think, for both characters. So what did you make of? Let's talk about Rick and Solomon Grundy first.
So as we were talking about a few minutes ago, Rick had a great character arc this season. Went from the brash, no consequences, hothead, to ending up being making the mature decision, making the compassionate decision, understanding that Solomon Grundy was a tool, a weapon, not necessarily, evil in itself. I felt like James Robinson, his writing and thought is all over this storyline, which is always a good thing for you and I.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really well done for him to show. I mean, Rick worked out his anger.
Yeah.
And determined that that isn't what he wants to be, and he, and he kind of blows it off, right? Like,
when Justin asked him, well, you didn't slay the beast.
Yeah.
And Rick's just like, our power was out anyway.
Yeah.
Trying to dismiss it.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I was really happy with this because,
Yes.
I talked about early in the season that I'm a big Rick Tyler Hourman fan, and I was a little disappointed that he was being portrayed as this big hothead who wasn't thinking. All he was talking about is like, I'm going to kill Solomon Grundy because Solomon Grundy killed my parents.
Yes.
And so he finally gets his chance, and they throw down, and Rick kind of unloads on him, just beats the snot out of Solomon Grundy, which is impressive on its own.
Right.
That our man beat up Solomon Grundy.
Yes.
And he has this moment, he has this big epiphany moment where, like he gets this chunk of ceiling or whatever, and he's about ready to kind of intentionally, and with the intent of possibly finishing off Solomon Grundy and smashing what's left of Solomon Grundy's face with this chunk of boulder and or chunk of ceiling, and he stops and he kind of looks at Grundy for a moment and realizes that he's mindless. He's just what he keeps calling an animal over and over, and realizes he can't kill. And so I was extremely happy about that. I was like, yes, that's the Rick Taylor that I love. And that chose not to kill. And I was so happy with that moment.
Yeah, I agree. It was this whole, Grundy looked almost afraid and childlike.
Yes.
And he's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I really like that Rick made that.
Hopefully this will get him over his anger issues a bit.
And they showed a little bit when they were at the football field.
Yeah.
That he seemed to be that way a little bit.
Little calmer, less aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was nice.
Yeah.
Compared to
it's compared to Yolanda. So let's talk about Yolanda.
Right.
Like I said, she had asked Rick not to kill because killing is wrong, and she brings up religion, and Rick's is like, well, if God doesn't want us to kill, then why did He kill my parents?
Yes.
And Yolanda doesn't have an easy answer for that, unfortunately. Right. And so maybe in the process she's thinking about this. This is kind of lingering in the back of her head, so that when she's she faces off against some of the Dragon King's goons and removes one of the hoods, and it's Henry Jr., and we're like, oh hey, Henry's alive, yay, like I was hoping. And then she ends up killing Henry Jr. and revealing that she knew because of what, quote unquote, Henry Jr. had said about Courtney, or about her friends, and Yolanda connecting that, well, Henry considered them his friends too, and that's what kind of tipped her off that it was really Brainwave. She ends him. So she gets justice for Henry Jr., but she kind of goes against her own teachings because, hey, thou shalt not kill, and is a bit of a hypocrite about what she told Rick. So what did you make of that moment?
So first off, as I'm watching the episode, I grab my phone, I open up Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm in the process of, and I can hear at Charles Skaggs scream of joy all the way. Oh, backspace.
Too soon.
Yeah.
This is why you shouldn't be watching the episode instead of tweeting about it.
Well, I normally do, but this was, and it was such a good fake out.
Yeah.
Really well done, because he explains exactly the way your theory worked, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't kill me. I've been hiding. I'm trying to do.
It was believable.
It was very believable
because that it seemed like the most obvious resolution. Like he's alive because his telekinesis.
And there's been a couple of interviews where Jeff Johns specifically said, because in comic worlds, no one is dead.
Yeah.
Till you see the body, or even then, that it was a perfect way to set up that kind of, reveal. I thought it was a great payoff. I understand her anger. I understand her reacting to this. This is a combination of being humiliated, going through all this problems, getting this power, then seeing a softer side of Henry Jr., maybe starting to forgive him sacrificing himself, then Brainwave Sr., which everyone knows is so evil and so cold, manipulating her that way. She just lost it.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the decision.
Yes.
But, obviously it's a big moment for her because now she's killed. And I think that's going to affect her.
And I think they're doing a good job of showing that this is bothering her.
Yeah.
Versus, I think they're blowing off the fact that Mike is a murderer. Mike just, he did hit and run.
Yeah.
And they're just going to let that go. We're just going to.
Oh yeah, they won't. I'm sure they will never address it again. My guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It made for a really great scene.
Even though they should.
Yeah, I agree.
But with Yolanda, I think they'll follow up on this.
Yes, I think so. I think
that would be part of her season 2 character arc.
Yeah, because the idea, and if I'm justifying it after the fact, as we talked about a few minutes ago, Mike was doing this to protect his family, knew that he would have been next, so you can certainly make the argument that he's doing this in a defensive manner.
Yeah.
A little tougher to say that with Yolanda, though obviously Brainwave would have killed them.
Yeah, and was a threat, I mean, because of his power, but yeah.
And so I think that's beautifully done. And we'll see what that happens.
Yeah.
Just well done show that you did this reverse, right? You had the angry, I'm to get revenge, hothead with this cold, no, we need to be, and then having them switch.
Yes.
Gave a really, really nice twist to the story, and will give us much more storylines for next season.
Yeah.
So really well done.
That's why I wanted to devote this topic to them, because I thought it was notable that,
Yes, I agree.
They both come at it from different angles, and then they kind of switch positions in this. And I'm still kind of holding out hope. I think it would be very funny at this point if Henry Jr. actually does turn up alive later on.
It would be funny. Yes.
Like, hey, I'm actually alive.
Hey, and they're like, no, we don't believe you.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It's it must be Brainwave again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And then he has to prove to himself, no, it's really me. Trust me, I'm not dead. I swear. So I'm not my father. Mm-hmm. So I thought that would be. That's what I think it'd be really hilarious to do that. All right. So topic number 4. We kind of talked a little bit about season 2 already, talking about how we'll probably see a version of Injustice Unlimited, at least the next generation of the Injustice Society, as Shiv and probably Icicle Jr. and others come to the forefront. We'll see, but I definitely want to talk about. We got like 3 notable bonus scenes, if you will.
Yes.
That kind of set up season 2. So first and foremost, we have to talk about this, especially since it came first. There's a scene where news is talking about that they kind of explain everything, that it was an earthquake, and a former member of the Injustice Society of America, the Shade, someone we've been hoping to see, is watching the newscast from the ISA's meeting room, and he makes a comment that he told Jordan that his plan was folly, and does it in a very ominous way that, hey, we'll see more of the Shade in season 2. So how happy were you to see this Shade, even for just a tiny moment?
Off the chart. First off, I love the fact that Barbara goes, what are people going to think? And Pat, in a very, and I'm biased,
yes,
but you will understand this, in a very Doctor Who, like, yeah, humanity ends up figuring out a way to forget this or justify it.
Yeah.
So earthquakes were happening. And so as we're hearing this and I'm smiling, you see the scene and you see the iconic top hat and cane.
Yes.
And then you hear him, and then the famous dark shadow tentacles, and I went, and really, really nice. Then immediately was, please let him be the Starman, the Shade. I know that's going to be tougher to do because if he's going to be the villain, you can't be this complicated guy that we saw in Star.
Well, we don't know that we don't know that he's a villain. He's just kind of sitting there talking about how he thought that Icicle's plan was stupid.
Yes.
And so, he could very well be that and I'm certainly hope now, especially with James Robinson writing for the show.
Yes.
And now that we're introducing the Shade, for those who don't know, the reason that Jesse and I are so excited is that the Shade was a very prominent supporting character in James Robinson's Starman run, and was a very, that kind of personality that was in the gray area. Like he was a villain, but occasionally does some noble things to kind of like make you think he's not fully evil. And he's a classic DC Comics Golden Age villain. He faced off against the Flash a lot. Robinson brought him in for Starman as a supporting character and really fleshed out that character and made him so three-dimensional. And I know because, hey, it's Stargirl show, not the Shade show, we probably won't get to see all of that, but we probably will get to see hopefully a little bit. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I cannot urge everyone enough to go back and read those series.
Definitely.
He did a mini series which was amazing, focusing on the Shade,
and a 12-issue maxi series.
Yeah, the idea is that he loves Opal City, and so therefore his love of the city is more important than his minor, his other thoughts.
Yes.
And also, this was almost a game with him. Like, he loved foiling with, Jay Garrett and the original Flash. And so this was almost a game with him, the same way that two sports teams have a great loving rival against each other. So very complex character, really well done. I don't know who they're casting, but so far this show has done a great job of casting, so I'm sure it's any good. Do you have any on your wish list?
Oh,
okay.
I haven't even thought about it, but I'm hopefully they cast somebody really well known, or at least somebody of like maybe who might be good? James Marsters.
Oh yeah.
Who played Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He would be very good at that.
Yeah, I think he would be. I think he, now that Runaways is over, I think he would be available. So I think that he might be a good Shade. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. The other thing is, and I'm going to the next topic, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's go to the next topic. Go ahead.
I was always a fan of Eclipso.
Okay.
And that villain. I always love the idea, and that villain has played some major parts. Like, it's been a DC crossover several years ago where this was everywhere. And
Eclipso, The Darkness Within.
Yes.
The event series.
Yes,
yeah.
And it was, the idea, right, that the stone takes over you and changes, brings out your evil persona. And I think Cindy is evil enough.
Yes.
She doesn't need the stone, but is she going to give it to someone else? Is she going to take it? Don't know, but it's really, really, I went, oh, nice. Because at first you're like, what's she looking for?
Yeah.
She's going through all the warehouse.
There's a little bit of Easter eggs there. There was a bunch of the Wizards artifacts, but you also saw like giant playing cards hinting, that the Royal Flush Gang used to fly around on, and some other Easter eggs, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And so to see that was like, oh man, that's nice. That's really nice. So we have two possible, if you include
Yeah.
the new Fiddler, three, but these are the main two setups for what could be our adversaries
Yeah.
next season.
The next incarnation of the Injustice Society.
Right.
So Eclipso, I mentioned this way back. You may not remember it, but I mentioned this as a potential storyline because Yolanda's brother, when we were talking about Yolanda, her brother, Alex Montez,
Okay.
at one point he becomes Eclipso.
Oh, I do remember now you mentioned that.
So now that they've introduced the Black Diamond, the famous Black Diamond for Eclipso, and presumably it would need a new host. That what if Yolanda's brother, Wildcat's brother, becomes the new Eclipso, like he does in the comics?
I would like that for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
One of my, I meant to mention during our Yolanda segment,
Yeah.
is I know there wasn't time, but I would have liked to seen that she had gotten better with her family. I mean, we just saw them. They're all at, Pat and Barbara's house for Christmas. So you would hope that she has gotten better with her family.
Yeah.
Because we left it with such a cold distance.
Well, the only one that was believing in her was her brother.
Yes.
So it would probably be even more upsetting if the only one that was believing in her becomes an evil supervillain.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that plays out. But that's my guess at this point.
I like that. Guess.
So we'll see.
So I have a slight confession.
Okay.
I have a podcast scheduled to start at 8 p.m. Tuesday night, Dallas time.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I've got to watch Stargirl. So I'm watching it, like watching the clock and watching this. I'm like, okay, I could do live. And so we see the scene with them flying off the water tower.
Yeah.
And like, okay, great.
That's it.
Turn off the TV. I run to the computer room and I log on to record my podcast with my buddies.
Yeah.
So the next day,
yes.
And wow, that bonus scene! I went, okay, I had not deleted the episode off my DVR.
So you missed the final bonus scene.
I missed the bonus. So went back. Someone posted online, and I went back, and when I watched the episode again, this time I saw. So give me your theory on the bonus scene.
Okay, so to set this up, so we after the whole big the scene of seeing Stargirl and S.T.R.I.P.E on the water tower, and they fly off together, all heroic, what Jesse thought was the end.
Yes.
And then we pick up in North Hollywood, California, where presumably Sylvester Pemberton, played once again by Joel McHale, drives to the former Dugan apartment and visits his building manager and asks where Pat is. The manager says, Pat doesn't live here anymore. He moved away months ago. And Sylvester makes a comment that, well, I'm an old friend, and gives his name as Sylvester Pemberton. The guy that we thought was dead. So question is Starman / Sylvester Pemberton really alive? And if so, is he going to want his cosmic staff back? We'll see in season 2.
So I don't know what I think of that.
Were you surprised?
Yes, I was. One, because I missed all of it. But yes, even then when I was told, I was like, oh, this is a nice little twist.
Yeah.
What are they wanting to do? We've established he's not Courtney's father.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of questions. Why is he still alive? Where's he been all these years? What's happening? Really, really, because I thought setting up with Eclipso and the Shade, all right, they've done a really good job of setting up next season. To throw this, like, oh wow, that's even a nicer twist. I don't have a theory. I don't know if this is really the actual Starman or not. But I think I love the actor.
Yeah.
And I think if he's going to be on a couple of episodes, that would be a good thing. So I'm curious to see what happens. And yes, let's say he is Starman.
Yeah.
And yes, but I just was reading an article that Jeff Johns said that, in this comic, the cosmic staff wasn't this alive. This wasn't a character. And this is something that kind of evolved as they were making the show. And now then it does have a sense of personality, which goes, will the staff be loyal to his original partner, or has he now attached to Courtney and would believe in her?
Yeah.
So great possible storyline.
Well, I also brought up the point earlier. I keep saying that, but yeah,
That's okay.
That Starman's costume was essentially the Skyman costume from Infinity Incorporated. That's the identity in the comics that Sylvester Pemberton takes on after retiring as the Star-Spangled Kid. And, here in the TV series, I thought it was interesting. Well, they name him as Starman, but they have him in a similar Skyman uniform. So now I'm kind of wondering, well, if it is Sylvester and if he is really alive, will Sylvester become Skyman like he is in Infinity Incorporated and leave the Stargirl identity and the staff to Courtney?
I don't know. That would be good. That would be neat.
Like initially, that maybe there'd be some friction. Now we do know that as Skyman, that he had, as the Star-Spangled Kid, Sylvester had a cosmic converter belt, so he could have powers without the staff. But if they introduce this belt, so we'll see. Something again, because I'm a comic geek, so that I try to make these connections to see, try to put myself in Jeff Johns and James Robinson's heads and try to see how they might fit that into the show. So we'll see.
The other things they will address, what does the city look like now? Like, where is Barbara working? Has that corporation totally destroyed? Because, that Pat's got the auto shop, but, what they're still living there for some reason.
Maybe Barbara will take over the foundation.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because now that Jordan and the gambler have skipped, Jordan's presumably dead. The gambler has skipped town.
Right.
So maybe she'll take it over.
That would be a storyline I would address to do that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about this episode? There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, great. A lot in the 40 odd minutes. Really well done. I liked it a lot.
Okay. Favorite quotes. What's your favorite quote?
So
I know you got some.
I only got a couple. You mentioned when Jordan is kind of, what are you doing up here, Pat? You've got no powers, no stripe. And Pat, I'm here to protect my wife. And Jordan, with what exactly? Our daughter. And Courtney attacks. That's great.
Yeah, that was a classic line.
Yeah, and then just I think it was one of the best when Mike runs over Icicle with the truck, and he's like, "Does this mean I get to be in the JSA?" And just like, yes,
yeah, that was good.
You're a murderer. We let you in. You get a costume. You get a costume. What do you got for us, Charles?
I've got where Justin has just recovered from the mind control, and Wildcat asks, "Is he back to normal?" And Justin makes the comment, "I'm free to slay the dragon." And Our Man replies, "His normal."
Yes.
Thought that was good.
Done. And absolutely.
I liked Rick's line about Solomon Grundy when he's ready to throw down with Solomon Grundy, and he says, "I've got 5 minutes left, and it's all for you." Thought that was good.
That was really very good.
That was a very good moment. And Barbara with the icicle saying, "You're out of your damn mind. Your wife would be horrified to see the person you become." And Icicle says, "You didn't know my wife. I will succeed, Barbara. Look at me. I will succeed, and I will kill your daughter and your husband for what you have all done. I want you to think about that on the way down."
Yeah.
So I thought
very evil.
They're very supervillain.
Very supervillain.
I'm going to throw you off this roof and you will die. So, yeah, thought that was fun. What's your rating?
I really like this one a lot, and so I'm going to go. I'm going full fanboy. I'm, despite my little nitpickings, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 delayed Christmas presents.
Okay. Well, I'm in a sort of similar vein, but I'm going to give this one. I thought it was solid, but I didn't think it was perfect. So I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. World's greatest dad mugs.
Nice.
Because that's what was inside that present.
Yes.
And this is something that Courtney has apparently been saving. Was saving for her biological father, to give to her
Yes.
biological father, only to realize, well, hey, my biological father is a complete a-hole,
Yeah.
and Pat's my real father. So she instead re-gifts and gives it to Pat instead.
Yeah, and that's a nice reveal because they see the very first episode she's got that box.
Yes. They've been teasing it here and there. We see it every so often.
Yeah, see every once in a while we see that and the thing. So to get that reveal is just really well done.
Yeah.
So I like it a lot.
Yeah. Phantom Zone news, I just have a little bit to talk about. Recently, for those who don't know, there's been a lot of things going on with DC Comics lately. They laid off a bunch of people, and because of Time Warner, the AT&T, the Warner Media cutbacks, and one of the things that's been also been in a lot of people's concern is what's going to happen to the DC Universe streaming service. As Jesse's picking his ear with his glasses and distracting me. And DC Comics' Jim Lee, who is still the publisher at DC Comics, confirmed that DC Universe's original shows are going to be moving to HBO Max. So we knew that, Doom Patrol, which is already on HBO Max, and Harley Quinn is already on. So presumably that also means the third season of Titans and the fourth season of Young Justice. We're not sure about Stargirl because Stargirl is going to be on the CW, and that's supposedly going to be exclusive. So I kind of doubt that.
I think
for season
so
2. So I don't think it'll be on HBO. That won't be on HBO Max, but it will be continuing on the CW. And presumably we're going to learn more because this coming weekend is going to be DC's big Fandom event, which is horrible timing because you have all these layoffs like 2 weeks before their big media event. And hopefully we'll learn more about Stargirl Season 2 and a lot of the other shows. Hopefully we'll get some news about, there's supposed to be a Titans panel, so hopefully we'll learn about Titans Season 3 and all the kinds of DC Comics movies and whatnot. There's going to be a lot of guests. It's a pretty big deal. And so we'll see what happens. There should be a lot of news coming out of that, so everybody stay tuned. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it at some point. All right.
Nice.
All right. Phantom Zone fan mail. We did get some feedback from Ken from Chicago. Different Ken. Ken from Chicago, who just squeaked in under the wire this morning with an email. Big, long email that we don't have time to get through. So we'll try to get through as much as we can here. So he writes in about Stars and Stripes Part 2. He says, "Hi, Charles and Jesse. Hope you're doing well. Well, this is it. This is my review of Stargirl Season 1. I just read a couple. He breaks it down to good, bad, and wah, so I'll just do a couple things from each segment. Good. Nice opening showing the effect of the broadcast and toe-tapping song. Music selection is another thing. The show does that well that I'm sure Jesse appreciates, even if they can't afford music from the boss." Well, they played Springsteen in episode 1, so
They did. Yes, they did.
that was actually the Springsteen version.
And I've actually talked about that. I think they've spent a fair amount of money on music this episode.
Yeah. Bonus: Jordan's talk with a little girl about her daddy being May turned good, and her countering that he's already good, and Jordan realizing that you don't argue with young children. You'll see. So fights are best when you don't engage, even if you are the leader of a supervillain team. Nice to see Beth figure out how to save Pat and the silent shining knight. Nice to see even characters in the show don't always get the names right. And not Chuck. It shows Beth can do more than mouth what the computer says, unlike Sigourney Weaver's character in Galaxy Quest. Kitty, Gambler has a cat, so he can't be all bad. Yeah, I'm sure Lori liked that, my wife. Also seeing how rich he is or was, and it helps to understand how the ISA could afford such wonderful toys. And then, let's see here, the bad. Despite standing up to Jordan, Barbara was the weak link of the episode. That's less Amy Smart's fault, but the writing. It would have been nice to have a scene of Jordan threatening to kill her family if she didn't come with him. Otherwise, how did he make it all the way up to the rooftop with her in tow? Because he's a supervillain, man. And also, at a random rooftop they had never been on before. The show is great at foreshadowing. It would have also been nice to have foreshadowed this. Also, Barbara just stands there behind Jordan as he threatens her husband after Jordan had threatened her husband, and her daughter. Nope. So the Icicle Stargirl cosmic staff explosion knocked Barbara up and over the waist-high railing, but not Pat, who had been standing between her and Icicle. And Mike still seems like an afterthought of what could have been a great family hug moment. At the end is just Pat and Courtney hugging with Barbara looking on. Pat and Mike have never seemed half as close, he argues. And then why shouldn't there have been some accidents with people frozen, especially vehicular ones, or did the brainwashing include telling to break their landing and water vehicles and maintain flight of air vehicles, much like Brainwave had puppet control over Pat? Wildcat catching Stargirl in mid-fall, so the suit is absorbing the impact, much like Black Panther's vibranium suit or Captain America's vibranium shield absorbed kinetic impact, ? Otherwise, Stargirl would be dead from the sudden stop, like Lois Lane would be caught from a fall without absorbing the momentum. And so did the 11-year-old Mike deliberately run over a guy. How did he reach the pedals and see out the windshield of a truck? That's one of the things I brought up. Or where did Stargirl know? Or did he know where Stargirl and everyone else was? Or did he have a comm piece like the rest of the JSA?
Good question. I hadn't thought of that.
Yep. So he says, my rating for Stargirl season finale Stargirl 9 out of 10. Totally non-curious Blue Valians. And bonus, my rating for season 1 of Stargirl 9.9 out of 10. Refreshingly, relatively realistic teen heroes and adult parent villains and unanswered questions for season 2. It rivals season 1 of The Flash and Black Lightning for near perfect seasons and awesome first seasons. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's up there with The Flash season 1 and Black Lightning season 1.
Yeah, I think it was a really good season, and I'm excited where they're going to go. I'm thrilled they've gotten a second season already. Now who knows when they're going to start filming? Like we're hearing news about people trying to go back and film now with all in the middle of the pandemic. It's going to be strange. Yep. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do.
Yep. He says, well, I look forward to next season whenever it arrives and sad that it's over. I hope you will do a special season review of Stargirl. All too often, season finale reviews and will squeeze in a season-long review, shortchanging one or both. Plus, it would be great to have another episode of the Phantom Zone podcast. Until then, take care, you terrific twosome. Dynamic duo was taken. Ken from Chicago. So
thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
That.
Yeah, yes. We definitely appreciate that. So, if you want to write to us, we'd love to hear from you. If you got any thoughts about how Stargirl Season 1 came down, drop us a line, phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Twitter, at phantomzonecast on Twitter, at Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. And Jesse, where can they reach you?
Well, I'm going to echo. We need feedback. Charles and I are in the process of debating what we want to do next. Next week we're taking for sure a week off. We are doing some Set Lusting Bruce episode business during our recording slot, but I would like to hear from people. What would they like us to discuss next? And you can do that, as Charles mentioned. That you can also reach me directly on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear Charles and I every week. We are going through some wonderful classic Doctor Who episodes on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with guest companions. We'd love for you to check that out. We are just 2 weeks away from September, which is the 5th anniversary of Set Lusting Bruce. And Charles is going to be joining me. We're going to have a lot of other fun things for that anniversary month. It is the a wood or silverware anniversary.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out how do I do a wooden fork to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Set Listing Bruce. Charles, where
Yes.
can they hear you?
As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee in the Hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast, including Stargirl or Watchmen or any kind of other comic book TV show news, like the Umbrella Academy or The Boys or all the other, DC Universe, HBO Max shows, and probably going to be posting a lot about what's coming out, any news that comes out during DC Fandom, so stay tuned for that. And also news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick and I are going to be finishing up here very shortly, Doom Patrol Season 2, which has been quite enjoyable, having a lot of fun with that. And then Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Jesse and I are currently going through Doctor Who and building ever closer to our big 200th episode, which I'm keeping under wraps for now. So should be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to that. So hope everybody enjoys that. And Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Xana Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. And we just posted our first episode of what's going to be our 6th episode review of classic X-Files episodes featuring Twin Peaks actors. And we did our first one because David Duchovny, who played on Twin Peaks Special Agent Denise Bryson, of course, becomes Fox Mulder, and who's one of the two lead characters on the X-Files, along with Gillian Anderson. So we decided, we're going to, in honor of David Duchovny, we're going to talk about the pilot episode, the very first X-Files episode, which I thought was a great place to start. And we had a really great discussion, and hope everybody checks it out, because I think we, it's kind of fun to talk about some X-Files. It brings back some great memories from yours truly, because I was a big X-P-File, Xphile, back in the day. So hope everybody gives it a listen on Ghostwood.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I'm joining you guys on this journey.
That's right. Jesse's writing in. So
because X-Files is one of the blind spots of my, culture. We all have places that we're like, I really should have watched this by now, and X-Files is one of mine. So I'm kind of using this as an excuse to kind of pick up a few episodes and then I get to hear Zan and Charles talk, and that makes it double as much fun.
Exactly. And you enjoyed the pilot episode.
I did. I enjoyed the pilot episode a lot. I think, as I said, I think it set up the world well.
Yeah.
And it set up their partnership well. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Well, great. And I hope you enjoy continuing as we go through our retrospective here. So next time on the Phantom Zone, episode 190, we have no idea.
Exactly.
We haven't talked about it. There's a lot of great comic book shows out there right now. I know I just personally finished the Umbrella Academy Season 2, which was fantastic. We got The Boys Season 2 coming up. I'm sure there's going to be lots more things down the pike. So we're not sure when we're going to come back. But when we get it figured out, hopefully it won't be too long. And otherwise, we really appreciate you guys listening for our Stargirl Season 1 discussion. Obviously, we'll probably do more when Stargirl Season 2 arrives. But, until then, thank you so much for listening. Jesse, I had a ball talking these episodes with you, especially hearing your big enthusiasm for this show.
Absolutely. This has been great.
And it's been a really good discussion. And otherwise, thanks again for everybody for listening. And hopefully it won't be too long before you see us next time on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.